Hi, my name is Joseph Nyhoff. I was the first naturalist, ranger, and site superintendent at Goose Lake Prairie State Park. I have a bachelor's of science in education. I was a teacher. I was a naturalist for Cook County Forest Preserve District at Sand Ridge. I learned my beginning of prairie at Sand Ridge of fire management and restoration. I assisted with some of the restoration at Morton Arboretum in Lisle. Then I took a job at Illinois Beach State Park, and that was sand dune and swale and prairie environment up there. Then I transferred to Mississippi Palisades State Park, and I was lucky enough to be there when Dr. Ebers came back with his 20th anniversary study of hill prairies of Illinois.
How was this location picked?
This location is in the Miller Farmstead, 360 acres, approximately of one of the largest blocks of non-prairie environment within the park. The Callens, Anderson, McCabe family, which were the primary owners of all the land that the nature reserve resides on, they kind of liked it. We guaranteed we'd buy a huge chunk of property from the Callens, Anderson, McCabe family, and that included the land west of Jugtown. And a lot of that land wasn't good prairie. So the department asked ComEd if they would buy that property off of us, so we weren't into the family for that much money, and that's how we helped put up the cooling lake.
What is the mandate for Goose Lake?
The mandate for Goose Lake Prairie State Park is in the Nature Reserve Master Plan: to preserve, to protect, and to educate.
Who decided on the location of the visitor center and its trails?
Planning for the visitor center down here, and the trails was between H. Dean Campbell, who was in charge of the naturalists at that time, and myself.
When was the visitor center built?
It was probably finished, I think, about 75. And then it was dedicated to Gunnar A. Peterson, and I believe in 79.
Who is Gunnar A. Peterson?
Gunnar A. Peterson was in charge of the open land project in Chicago. He was instrumental in helping Goose Lake Prairie get purchased, and especially helpful in the getting the I&M Canal back from the feds. And he was a very influential conservationist in the late 60s and early 70s. And he moved on to someplace in Canada. And this was how we thanked him on his way out.
Can you explain early pictures of people at Goose Lake on horseback?
We took those pictures with a park conservation worker at that time by the name of Lori Lincheski, and we dressed her up as a Native American and put her on horseback to show how tall the grasses were and how difficult travel would have been. That's one set of pictures. Horses are not as easy to take care of as ATVs or trucks. You go in a truck, you put the key in, you turn the key, poof, it starts and away you go. Horses take time and effort. And eventually, the state isn't wild enough to need a horse patrol, really. And it's not urban enough like the city of Chicago to use horse patrol often. So that program kind of died out.
Why is Goose Lake important?
Goose Lake Prairie State Park is the largest tall grass prairie east of the Mississippi River. This was extremely fertile soil. If this hadn't been marshy and covered with boulders from the Kankakee torrent where it blew out the edge of one of the post-glacial lakes and rolled all the boulders down here, it wouldn't be here. They'd have farmed it up and had it gone. The majority of Illinois was tall grass prairie. From here all the way down to the Shawnee Forest was tall grass prairie. It was beautiful. It was scary. The early pioneers didn't write anything about it because they didn't know anything about it. We didn't have any people that came from the steppes of Russia. We just had farmers from Central Europe. And if it had a tree on it, they knew that was good ground. So this, because it's the largest piece, it shows you what it was like before it was settled by man.
How have you spread the word about Goose Lake?
We are teaching the locals about us. I used to write newspaper columns. I wrote Nyhoff's nature notes for several years for the Morris Daily Herald. We were lucky to get several very good articles in the Chicago Tribune and the Sun-Times over the years. And Chicago Magazine listed us as one of the best state parks to go visit. All the stuff the department puts out, we get mentioned in. So that's how we try to do it.
How has the Prairie Partners made a difference?
We did cleanup and tree cutting. But as time went on, we went more into photography and education. And now they're the backbone of keeping the park running. I had a assistant superintendent, 2 techs, a ranger, and a park naturalist, and myself, and a secretary. There is no secretary, there is no assistant superintendent, there are only 2 techs, there is no park naturalist, there isn't the staff to handle what needs to be done. Without the volunteers, the park would not be open to the public on the weekends.
How are William HELMIC and JANICE LINKLETTER important?
William HELMIC came out and wanted to volunteer. He was a photographer by trade. He did architectural photography and product photography. And Bill didn't know anything at all about the birds, the bees, the flowers, and the trees, and certainly not plants at all. And he was an excellent photographer. He brought in some of the most astounding pictures of weeds I ever saw in my life, but they were good pictures of weeds. He was a volunteer out here for many years and took a lot of the pictures, a lot of the slides that are in our slide collection. And Janice Linkletter, again, she was a member of the Chicago Audubon Society, and she worked in industry in Chicago. And she was a girl from the West Virginia hills. And she came out here and she researched what is Block 1, the first block east of the railroad tracks up against Old Collins Road. And she came out here for many years, also took photographs and became a family friend. And we knew her for, 15, 20 years. The same for Bill.
Overall, did you enjoy your career at Goose Lake?
I had the best job in the world. I could either work outside or I could work in the office. Now, weather like this, I either stayed outside all the time or I stayed in here. I could not go back and forth in the air conditioning to the heat. There are some things about the job, the emergencies I didn't like, the telephone calls in the middle of the night. But if I had to do it again, I'd do it again. I have no regrets.